Hey everybody, thanks for tuning back into another I'm going brain dead already. Another Tuesday chat with OTRAMM. Same as always, no real format. Just whatever questions you've got, ask away. Whatever cruiser stuff you want to chat about, just let me know. We got the long range 200 series gas tank installed last week and got the video for that shot and edited. So that I think comes out later this week. We also did one. We did one of the Cruiser Outfitters interior hatch release kits on the back hatch. So we did video on that. I think I've got that scheduled to come out next week. This week we're putting a water-to-air intercooler on a supercharged 80, and we're bringing a barn find 40 series back to life. Danny's working on knuckles and steering and brakes on it, while I do the supercharger work and do some more work on the 80 series rear bumper. Trying to think what else we've got going on. I think that's it for projects in the shop. We're leaving it kind of light this week because I'm out of the shop most of next week. I'll be down at FabTech in Atlanta. So if any of you guys are down in Atlanta, let me know. I'm there Tuesday and Wednesday, I think. So there won't be a Tuesday chat next week because I'm not toting everything that it takes to do chat down to Atlanta with me. I'm going to have enough stuff with taking all the camera gear. Yeah, I'm trying to think if anything else is going on. Tim got back from Appalachian Rendezvous today and said it was muddy, but a good time. That's all I can think of. Hopefully you guys can see and hear me. I keep moving stuff around on my desk, so I'm never quite sure that everything's working like it should be. I can see myself in the computer, but I can't hear me on this end because it makes weird feedback. What else? For the couple of guys that emailed me about stickers last week, I was out of stamps, but went and got stamps yesterday, so stickers went out yesterday. So yeah, and then Christian says Land Cruiser 100 V8 can't get the rear diff to lock. I've never messed with the diff lock on 100 series. I really haven't had to mess with them much on the 80 series. From what I've read, they get stuck from not being used. They just get sticky. I've read some folks have good luck with, changing the gear oil, flushing it out, getting new gear oil in there, and then just keep trying to work it back and forth. I know Wits End, I'm going brain dead. Wits End sells rebuild kits, I know, for the 80 series, and I'm not positive if it's the same for the 100 series or not. I think it is, but I'm not sure. Salt shouldn't hurt the actuator unless your wiring harness is corroded. We did have 100 in a few weeks ago that part of the exhaust had rotted off and it had fallen, hit the wiring to the rear diff actuator, and then pushed that into the drive shaft, and that shredded everything. But that should be pretty evident, if you climb under there and your harness is ripped loose. I'm trying to think. And I know there's like weird stuff like you need to be in low range and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I would probably find like a gravel lot and just keep trying to exercise it. Sometimes you can get it to free up if there's not an actual like problem. And if it, I think it looks the same as the 80 series. You know, you should be able to unbolt the actual actuator motor, you know, and see if that's working. And there's also, I'm pretty sure, limit switches on there, although I'm not positive. You could have a sticky limit switch. Yeah, we've never had to go into mess with the diff lockers that much, beyond just draining and filling the differential fluid. But yeah, if the red light's blinking, I would think that means it's trying to engage. I've also had good luck if you jack up like one rear wheel, you know, with the truck in park, and jack one wheel off the ground and just rock the tire back and forth. Sometimes if it's sticky, you can get it to hop past the sticky point, doing it slowly by hand, rather than trying to do it while you're driving, since there's no load on it. We've gotten a couple to pop in that way. You run the risk of it sticking locked after you get it to do that, but we haven't had that happen yet. But yeah, I don't have a whole lot of experience with actually messing with the factory lockers. We just haven't really seen them broken. I wish I had better answers for you. Trying to think if I can think of anything else. Yeah, that's all I can really think of is, you know, maybe try jacking one tire up in the air and seeing if you can get it to engage without being under load. That might help free things up. Because if you've got blinking light, I would think the fuse would be good. Awesome. Glad you got the AHC taken care of. And to answer Land Cruiser Life's question, we generally leave the AHC components on the frame rails. We just unplug the pump motor and unplug the AHC computer under the dash. The HC trucks we get through, usually we're deleting the HC because lines have rusted out. Yeah, and the top bolts are so rusted and seized in that there's not an easy way to get them out, and nobody really wants to pay us the time it would take to remove all the extra components. So we just tie the old lines up out of the way, and we just tie the lines up out of the way and leave everything intact. And Timothy wants to know if he can use 4th gen 4Runner suspension parts on an 05 Lexus GX470. I'm not sure. We don't see a lot of 4Runners or GX470s, and the ones we see, really, we only see them for timing belts and radiators. I've done a little bit of suspension work on them, but not much. I want to say they share the same platform, but I'm not positive. I would check with like Cruiser Outfitters. They would likely know right off the top of their heads because they do so much with the Old Man Emu stuff. I'm pretty sure they're both Prado platform. Yeah, like Land Cruiser Life said, but I'm not absolutely positive. I think Metaltech 4x4 also lists interchangeability for the GX470 on their website, but it's been a while since I checked. I am striking out on knowing things this evening. It's a good thing Land Cruiser Life is here, because they seem to know things. Yeah, I used to do, a bunch of Forerunner work, but nowadays everybody just brings me Land Cruisers. Usually, if we get a Forerunner or a GX in, it's because the person also has a cruiser. Nobody ever thinks to bring them to us just for that stuff. Yeah, I wish I had the time to spend on Mud, going through all the threads and keeping up to date with everything. But we're so busy at the shop and with everything else going on, I just don't have time. I get on there, like if I run into a specific issue, I'll go on Mud because, chances are somebody's already had that issue and it's pretty easy to find the answer to what you're looking for. But yeah, I don't get to spend near as much time on there as I used to. But like I popped in like 2 days ago to get the flywheel tooth count for a 3B. And there was like 3 different threads that had it. You can find the answer to anything on Mud. It's rare that I pop on there and can't find what I'm looking for. Eric says he's got a 200 series and noise in the drivetrain on acceleration, worse under load and with speed. I can hear it making a clicking at low speed. Does it change when you like steer? Like if you drive slalom style, can you make the sound change, or does it change with a not slight? Like if you turn hard, does it change? My gut says wheel bearing, but that's just a gut guess. If it changes under turning, that might change my guess. Doesn't seem to change when turning. That kind of rules out my wheel bearing or front axle, CV axle guess. Without hearing it, it's really hard to say. We've had them be as simple as a rock stuck in a brake backing plate, down to U-joints or output bearings in the transfer case. Best lift setup for an 80 series, that's going to be like an opinion question. We do mostly 80 or the Old Man Emu stuff because that's what seems like everybody wants. We do a ton of that. We've done a couple of the Slinky lifts. Those are awesome. But I think a lot more expensive than the Old Man Emu stuff. We recently did a tough dog on a 200 series, and I was really impressed with the quality of that, but I haven't done their 80 series kit yet, but those are probably also really nice as well. And yeah, I'm about an hour from Silver Spring, so swing it by. We can take a listen to it. See if we can pinpoint it down. We've got chassis microphones that we can clip underneath to get a better idea of where the noise is coming from. And to answer David's question, we haven't been seeing wheel bearing failures on the 200 series yet. Granted, we aren't really seeing that many 200 series. I think we've got 6 regulars with 200s now. It's still the vast majority of what we're seeing is 80 and 100 series. Yeah, Kurt would probably be more up to date on failure modes just because they sell parts to everybody across the country. So they probably hear everything. With the limited amount of the 200 series as we're seeing so far, I don't have a good sample base to really give you a good answer. We did just take the front wheel bearings off of a 200 last week to put the Tundra big brake kit on one. You had to take the wheel bearings out to change over to the larger backing plates. But those wheel bearings were still fine. But I don't know how many miles were on that one. It was 2014. Yeah, they don't look as burly. They don't have as much bearing separation as the older stuff did, where you could actually adjust them and replace the bearings individually. Oh, and to go back to Eric's front end possible noise, I can't remember if it's the Tundra or the 200 series or both, but one of them has a ball bearing race for one of the pinion bearings, and I could see that making a clicking noise. The tapered roller ones tend to howl, but I could see where the roller one on the newer style, or not roller, ball bearing one on the newer style could make a clicking sound. Oh, and I also got asked last week about OTRAMM shirts. So I finally stopped being lazy and fixed the logo and put shirts up at Store Frontier. And there's a link down in the description, and then I'll stick a link in the chat here too. So yes, we do now have OTRAMM shirts. As of last night, I finally got them done. I figured I should get them ready for chat today. And I got the first section of the 80 series buyers and modification guidebook finished writing over the weekend. Writing a book is taking me way longer than I thought it would. And I haven't even started adding pictures or anything yet. It's just words so far. Oh, and I almost forgot the greatest, biggest news. We went over 1,000 subscribers last week. So now the channel's finally getting reviewed to be in the YouTube Partner Program, which will be nice because it'll let us do some cooler things with chat And it just opens up more perks on the channel, because YouTube will actually treat it as a real channel if we get through the review process. So I'm really excited about that. I never thought we'd actually get to 1,000 subscribers. And I think we're at like 1,060 now. So that was super cool. And we got somebody, I had a Patreon link down in the description for a couple of months now. And we got our first person subscribed to our Patreon last week. And crazy enough, it was a guy from Australia. So Lawrence, if you're on live chat, thank you for subscribing on our Patreon page. It means a lot to us, and it was super awesome and really cool that it was somebody completely on the other side of the planet. And if you want to do Patreon as well, the link's also in the description box down below the video. So yeah, I think that's all of the news and announcements that I'm forgetting about. So yeah, who's got more Land Cruiser questions? Because I'm batting 0 so far tonight. So we have to come up with questions that I know the answer to. Yes, we did the long range automotive fuel tank on a 200 series last week. Actually finished up wiring on it this morning and test drove it. Video is all done and edited and comes out Thursday morning. I'm trying to actually pace out the videos now instead of like doing them all as one lump sum. Yeah, also did the Cruiser Outfitters rear hatch release from the inside on that 200. And it was really nice. And that thing is way too much fun to drive. It's supercharged. We did the, I think, 13.5 gallon. Yep, it's a transfer pump. And to answer Christian's question on the front diff in the 100, they seem to be holding up. You know, they're lighter duty than their earlier counterparts, but the ring doesn't seem to be a ton smaller than the front of an 80. The only one I've seen so far got blown up because one of the side seals was leaking and it got run out of gear oil and burned up. Like it actually had charred, burnt metal on the inside. I haven't seen one broken from actual wheeling, but most of our customers are light wheeling on them, like fire roads and stuff. We don't have anybody rock crawling them. I want to say the 100 series front's 2 pinion, but I'm not positive. It's been forever since I've done a 100 series front. See, everybody knows all this Land Cruiser trivia. I just look this stuff up in the manual when I need to know it. But the long range tank on the 200 wasn't a terrible install. It actually went in easier than I thought it was going to. Awesome. Tuning in from Scotland. It's just so cool that like people are tuning in from all over the world. I was going back and forth on comments with a guy from Hungary last night, and emailing back and forth with the guy from Australia. It is just so cool that like people are tuning in from all over the place. Scotland is on our short list of places to visit. I think we're doing Iceland this year, but we've talked about doing Iceland, Scotland together. And I appreciate you tuning in and watching the videos. The solvents do bother me. And I think I've gotten hypersensitive to them after spending a decade painting cars, and getting all the buildup in my system from doing that, which is why we've switched over. The parts washer is water-based, and we use water-based in the ultrasonic for doing carburetors and fuel injectors. The only solvent we're using now is brake clean, and we've switched over to the low VOC stuff on that. Yeah, I'm not a fan of working with solvents. I would get, like working at the parts washer before we switched over to a water-based, you'd get a funky rash, even though you're wearing gloves, it still gets under your gloves. So yeah, we've switched over to water-based for all our cleaning stuff, and it's so much nicer. Crash was doing knuckles today on a 40, and we just loaded the entire batch of knuckles in the parts washer, and just let it run for an hour, and everything comes out spotlessly clean, no scrubbing, no having to mess with anything, no getting solvent on you. It drip dries before we take it out. So yeah, he let it all dry, and then we put it in the bead blaster, blast everything, and then paint it. And now it's sitting over on the other side with paint drying. I'm not sure what a boiler suit is, but it sounds awesome. Yeah, we got the small water-based parts washer a little over a year ago, and quickly outgrew it. And I got the giant Snap-on one maybe 6 months ago. And we had an entire 3F engine, like block, head, everything in there, and it'll clean it. Yeah, I love the thing. And it's gonna be nice this winter because it keeps the shop nice and warm with like 100 gallons of 180-degree water. No. Ah. Yeah, I've never been a coveralls kind of person. I got my red cap work shirts and Dickies double knee pants, and that's good for me. Yeah, one of these days I'll get over to Scotland. We'd been alternating, like Europe one year, South America the next year, but we've been doing more South and Central America lately just because it's cheaper. But we need to get back over to the Europe side of things. Advice on tools every Land Cruiser owner needs. Metric socket set, quarter, 3/8, half-inch drive, wire cutters and crimpers, 54 millimeter hub socket, a 24 millimeter for the drain plugs, a flashlight. I really like my JIS Phillips screwdrivers. They fit the Phillips screws on the Toyotas much better than what you can get in the US. I think Amazon has them. I think that's where I got my last set. The Vessel brand ones are super nice. Beyond basic metric socket set and pliers and stuff, really until you start getting deeper in, you're not going to need really any specialty stuff. And even then, it's not a lot. Socket set and wrenches will take you quite a ways. You'll want a torque wrench. Trying to think. Yeah, I mean, the nice thing about Toyota is, for the most part, they don't take nearly the amount of like specialty tools as working on like American or European vehicles do. And the special service tools they do need are generally cheaper and cover a lot more vehicles. A couple of hammers, like I like a nice ball peen dead blow, a brass hammer, some brass drifts. But even those, I mean, aren't necessary. Victor wants to know about exhaust side, valve clearance out, and lean combustion. I'm honestly not sure. We don't have LPG here in the States, so I have no idea on diagnosing those. I would assume it could mess with fuel control, but I don't know, because I don't know how the LPG sets up and how that runs, because we don't have them here. But I need to come visit you and get strudel. I really miss Hungarian strudel. But yeah, I don't know on the LPG stuff, unfortunately. And Jeff wants to know, driveline clunk, letting off gas after accelerating. Shop said there's play in the front differential. What generation cruiser? I'm guessing 80 series by the total, but that seems kind of high. Oh, 2000. That seems high, but I haven't priced used differentials for 100 series. Yeah, and it depends on where the slop is. I've seen more of them have a driveline clunk in the drive shafts themselves, in the splines. But I have heard of the front differentials going bad and making a clunk. Yes, if I make it back to Budapest, I will give you a shout. When we stayed up on, I guess it's Castle Hill, and went down to Redishvar and got strudels every morning. Oh, they were so good. I'm almost out of all the paprika that I brought back. I think I brought back like 12 cans because we put paprika in everything. You're fine, bud. It's not time yet. It's not time. Do you need to go outside? Um, right axle. I'm trying to think if that's. I think that is the short side stub on 100 series. So I could see that. I think on the stub shaft on 100 series, the right one is the one that plugs right into the carrier. So I could see slop forming there. If I wasn't a Land Cruiser Jedi mechanic, what else would I want to be doing? That's a good question. I don't know. I really like being a cruiser mechanic. I've been doing a lot of playing around with photography lately, but I don't think I would want to do that as a career. I think running a dog orphanage in a foreign country would be awesome. And that's the retirement plan, is to like move to South America and start a dog orphanage. I think orphanage sounds better than shelter. Yeah, I don't know. Like when I started out going to school, it was for engineering and drafting. But I realized I can't do math well enough for engineering and didn't like sitting behind a desk long enough for drafting. Machinist would be cool. I think if I could get a job as like an old school manual machinist, that would be awesome. And I wouldn't mind doing that. Come on, Charlie. Come on. Sorry, the dogs are going crazy. Somebody must be walking out in the neighborhood. But yeah, I don't know what else I would want to be. I think realistic second career choices, machinist would probably be at the top of the list. I really like playing with my machine tools that I've got, even though I'm not terribly good at it and don't have very nice tools, but they're fun to play with. You need to bring your 80 out for a visit. I'm sure it misses the shop. You could just like bring it out and drive it around a little bit. I didn't even think about that aspect of having a dog orphanage. But seeing how it would be a joint venture between me and my wife, that could be a problem. I may have to rethink the retirement plan. Maybe that's just a Hungarian problem. That was such a hard language to try to learn. And then we got there and everybody spoke English. 2000 Land Cruiser with 195K. Transmission fluid hasn't been changed since 90K. I wouldn't flush it, but I wouldn't be opposed to doing a drain and fill. You'll only change like six or so quarts doing it that way. But you could do that a couple of times and get most of the fluid changed through without the risk of dislodging crud using a flush machine. Yeah, just do the drain and fill, even if you do it a couple of times. I've not heard good things about flushing transmissions, but we drain and fill them all the time. The the additives wear out, the antioxidants and the friction modifiers wear out. So it's a good idea to get some fresh fluid in there just to revamp everything. Yeah, I don't know if we're just extremely messy with drain and fills, but it always seems to take us more quarts than whatever the book says. The 80 filter is up in the pan. Like, you got to take the pan down and it's bolted up on the bottom of the valve body. From what I recall, it's just a mesh filter. It's not like a paper filter. So we, on the 80 series, we normally just do drain and fill on those as well. We only drop the pan if it's leaking. I hate dropping transmission pans because no matter how long you let the thing drain before you take the pan off, it sits there and drips on your head the entire time you're under there. We've let them drain for a week, take the pan off, let it keep dripping, for a day or two overnight. That thing still constantly drips on your head while you're trying to work on it. Yeah, I can't remember the last time I even changed an 80 series filter. It was when I was still mobile. So probably 5 or 6 years ago. And please excuse the terrible face I just made. There's a delay when I'm watching myself, and I just saw it on the screen. I'm not sure where he got the supercharger, but yes, it is a TRD unit. And I would assume it probably does go to the Tundra, because that's the only other truck I've driven with that supercharger. I can ask him for more info when he comes to pick it up tomorrow, but I know it's TRD supercharger. And then I was in the fuse box under the hood. There's a Unichip control pack up under the fuse box. So I'm assuming that's helping out with the supercharger, but it is insanely fast. Crash took it out for a test drive today, And he came back and he was like, nothing this big and this heavy should move that fast. It was fun to drive. And it comes on to boost right off a throttle. I was quite impressed. It's a really nicely built 200. He's got the Omenimu BP51 shocks all the way around. We just put the long range case or long range tank in. We put the Jowett Performance big brake kit on the front and DBA pads and rotors out back. It's supercharged with a Warn winch hidden behind the front bumper. So you can't even tell it's got a winch until you flip up the license plate. I think Vince and Nathan did a lot of work on it as well. I think they did a lot of the initial build on it. I don't see any reason to not trust the Autobox. They seem to last forever here. Granted, we're not in extreme African heat. Thanks, Land Cruiser Life. Thanks for tuning in and saving my bacon on the questions I didn't know the answers to. Back to driving in Africa. I'd be tempted to put a larger transmission cooler on it, just to help to dissipate heat. Possibly switch to a synthetic transmission fluid. But I mean, they use, cruisers all over Africa, and they're super popular there, and all throughout the Middle East. So I would assume that they're holding up fine for as popular as they are. I'd imagine they've been well tested in those temperatures. Africa's another place I'd like to visit. I'd love to hit like Morocco, Egypt, and I know they're on different sides. One of our friends here in town is a travel photographer, tour operator person, and she's either in Morocco right now or just got back from Morocco. And the pictures she's been sending back have been awesome. I need to get to that part of the world. See, to join a rally, first I have to have a Land Cruiser. And then I have to have a way to get it to Europe and the funds to support driving said Land Cruiser across Europe and Africa. Yeah, that would be awesome, but way outside of the budget. I don't think they'd like me showing up in my Blurple Subaru. Although that does sound like a lot of fun. That's a cool idea too. I could see that being fun. But yeah, I don't even get around to wheeling 3 hours from my house, so I really doubt I'm gonna go wheeling on another continent. But maybe in the future. Yeah, the website for the business is just OTRAMM.com. There's not a ton on there. And you don't want me borrowing one of your Land Cruisers. You haven't seen me drive. There's a reason my Forerunner looks like it's been crushed. And previous owner changed oxygen sensor to a universal oxygen sensor, P1030. I don't know a P130 off the top of my head. Or 1030 rather. But it depends on what they did when they changed it to a universal. If they changed the flange, that could be an issue. And not all oxygen sensor related codes are actually the oxygen sensor. Exhaust leaks, weird fuel trim issues, engine misfires, stuff like that can also trip oxygen sensor codes. And I haven't seen it personally, but I've heard of people getting burned by the sensor heater driver in the computer burns out. And then you can put as many oxygen sensors as you want in there, and it'll never actually fix it until you swap the computer. So yeah, oxygen sensors, it's one of those things. To do it right takes quite a bit of diagnosing and following the wiring diagrams and looking at data stream. And a lot of times people just throw an oxygen sensor at the issue, and probably 90% of the time throwing an oxygen sensor at it fixes it. But that other 10% is where you actually have to dig in and figure out what the issue behind the oxygen sensor is. I've even seen just like salt water getting up in the plugs, causing weird oxygen sensor related check engine lights. So yeah, there's a lot of things that can complicate just changing oxygen sensors. And I don't have access to the shop information system, but I found this one that describes the the different things that can cause those codes in oxygen sensors. At the shop, it's nice. We subscribe to a service that you put the code in, and it spits back all the diagnostic procedures. The commonly replaced parts by how often they're replaced, all the factory trouble codes, everything. It makes diagnostics so much easier. But I can't log into it here from the house, unfortunately. How much to adjust the brake force after a 2-inch lift? I'm assuming you mean change the rear proportioning valve. So normally with a 2-inch lift, we don't mess with it. But if you did a 2-inch lift, just move the mount for the proportioning valve on the axle up 2 inches, and that should put you back to stock ratio. Because you lifted the body 2 inches, or the frame 2 inches. So lifting it, the bracket 2 inches should put you back to spec. Yeah, and to the oxygen sensor question, splicing wires, it's not horrible to splice them back. But depending on how hacked up they spliced it, it could be a problem. And Denburn, thanks for tuning in, and thanks for staying up late in Scotland. Have a good one, and thanks for the wishes on the next 1,000 subscribers. I'll talk to you soon. Appreciate it. Yeah, I'm actually probably going to jump off here as well. The dogs are tapping around behind me because they're ready for dinner. So thank you to everybody for tuning in. Sorry I didn't have answers to several of the questions this evening. There's only so much stuff I can cram in my head. But yeah, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe down below. And check out our Patreon link and our shirts down in the description. And I won't be here next Tuesday because I'll be in Atlanta, but I'll be here the Tuesday after that. So I'll catch you guys later. I appreciate it. Thanks.